You read the title of the video. I'm not gonna waste your time on an intro. This is a long video and a project that took about 2 weeks from start to finish. So let's jump right into it. We have a whole side, backing hide, oh my God, and 20 buckles. Oh God, oh God. I knew that was gonna happen, I just didn't wanna believe it. So we have our hide. First thing I gotta do is strip off belt-sized chunks. I got 20 belts and I don't want any wobbles. All right, so the first thing I gotta do, make a straight line so I can start stripping these belts off. Ow! I just closed one of my mustache hairs in the pen cap. Got my draw gauge set to 1.5 inches. As you can see, this is a straight line. Gotta use the belt stripper 20 times. Seeing them all laid out this way, making me hit the realization that I'm gonna have to tool all of this. Like, I'm looking at this like 9 to 10 square feet of tooling. This is a lot to a lot to take in right now, to be honest. So I'm gonna start getting into it. There's a handful of these belts that are custom with, you know, initials on the end or like some specific tooling, but then a huge other chunk of them, there's gonna be 14 of them that are basically all identically the same. We're gonna do 7 for 7 men, 7 women, so they are gonna be similar, but they'll be a little bit different here and there. I'm gonna jump into this, trying to chop away at this giant oak tree of a task I have in front of me. So this is our end. We're gonna have our snaps here with the buckle here. So we have to find a nice place where we want to put our ends at, mark them as such, and boom. Okay, so now we're going to tip these with our end punches. This is for the end of the belt. This is for the tip of the belt. I'm gonna just keep doing this one step at a time and just even like tip them all the same way. I do not wanna fumble. The more time we can try and streamline this process, the better. All these belts are gonna have basically this stuff across the back, this Trailer Park Rich and their logos. I've done projects for this brand before and I've had to trace out this all this lettering and carve it all out. And with an order this size, I told her, we really should just work on getting some stamps made. Even if it's just to save me time for having to transfer all the lettering and carving it all, even just making an imprint of the lettering, being able to bevel off the edges of the stamps is gonna save so much time. So that's exactly what we did. Now the only problem, I don't have a press. So here's our wording stamps. They are giant. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to wail into these things with the hammer, like straight up John Henry, just like clack, clack. These letter stamps in, these bad boys are gonna have to be super wet. So what I'm gonna do, just coming in here with my water and just rubbing these things. Dude, God bless our military and everything, but living near a naval Air Force base, which I didn't really know when I signed up to live here. Dude, straight jet fighter flyovers half the morning. Anyways, the very first thing we gotta do is set up our stitching groove. Now, setting the stitching groove is going to basically, tell me where I'm going to stitch at, but it's also going to help me with the layout of the art. It's getting real now. So they look pretty wet. As you can see, as I'm hitting them with the water, they don't look like they're drinking much, which is good. This is right where I want them. These stamps are huge. If I miss, I'm blowing a wrist out. I have about, if I see there's 5 stamps per belt, so I have about 100 different chances to blow my wrist off. So that sounded weird, but so they should be stamped like this. So what I'm gonna do is basically just tip them downward. So when I pick them up, I don't have to do any thinking. The more thinking, the more mistakes you're gonna make, basically. So we have our template. Okay, it's getting real. It's a pretty solid stamp. Try and use this other hammer. Yeah, that just feels better. There's something about this thing being springy. I also gotta flick it with my wrist that I feel like I can get a better hit than this. This feels just like too like a sledgehammer. Like I feel like this is almost too heavy duty to be like not accurate, but I don't know. I think I'm gonna just use the smaller hammer. Yeah, that felt really good. Okay, now here's the moment of truth. This is the biggest. This one's sketchy. I have to like rock this big ass stamp. I really wish I had my freaking press. You're welcome, Johnny. Okay. I think trailer's just gonna fight us the whole way through. I don't think there's gonna be a clean way of getting this stamp in there, which is okay. We're really only using this as a way to get our design on there so I don't have to transfer it all. So as long as there's some marks and stuff I can get a beveler in, I should be fine. There we go. That definitely worked. All right, before these things dry out, I gotta get on it. I drew her up her own custom set of tap-offs, so these belts all match. They also, have their own unique design. And what you do is you take your belt blank, and basically you'll carve this piece of leather. But what happens is you put it face down on a belt. You give it a little tap. Your design will get transferred to the belt. So that's gonna save us some time on drawing floral because we still have to add some stuff on top of this floral. These belts are taking a crazy amount of time. I don't know what I was thinking or thinking like how fast this would move, but I feel like I'm kicking ass and getting really accomplished. And then I'm sitting here going like, I don't even have this thing carved yet. So this is a massive, massive task, and it is starting to officially really sink in how crazy this is. Okay, so I have all the art transferred. This is going to be so much work. The farther along I get in this process, the more I realize this is a giant job. Like this is like my largest job I've ever done before and doubled it, literally. The men's belts that we have are by far the largest group. There's the men's belts, the women's belts, there's 7 of each, and then the customs there's 6. So the men's belt is 7 belts, and then also as an overall they are, they're larger on average. So how I'm gonna do it is I'm still gonna keep them in batches, right? But like, for example, I'm bringing all the men's belts in here. I'm gonna kind of keep them separated. It's gonna help me a little bit easier keep track of everything that I've done and kind of what I have left. So like, say halfway through the tooling process, it's like, okay, I might be halfway, like on paper, I might be on like, have just finished carving, belt number 10, but the second half is gonna be a lot easier. So I'm gonna try and really kind of front load the difficulty. I'm gonna try to work on the largest belt down in each belt group, and then each belt group down, while still simultaneously working on all 20 of them at the same time, if that makes sense. And my cat here, who's gonna start interrupting me. My big blade, I'm gonna be doing most of my carving with, and then my small blade, there's a couple little things throughout the belts. For example, there's cigarette butts and beer cans. All right, buddy. Oh, he's the... I swear to God, it's like having a badger. This cat is not even a cat. Look at how this cat is shaped. This is literally like, it's like literally owning a honey badger who's just lethargic and also sloth-like. The happiest cat ever, dude. All right, buddy, I got work to do. Honestly, I don't know if I want to kill time. Okay, dude, it's gotta be cat time. He's gonna leave me alone or I gotta get mad at him. And I can't get mad at him, he's just trying to get attention. All right, so I'm gonna get my cat scratches so he leaves me alone. But we're starting on the carving process. I'm gonna move the camera even too because I need to set my belts up long ways up and down like this on my bench so I can get a good angle on them. But here's probably 20 hours of carving in 2 minutes. All right, so that was one belt. That was in time lapse. I'm gonna need to time lapse the time lapse. All right, so they're all carved. We're gonna get to tooling them. This is a lot of work, so I am just gonna get to it. This is like you know, you could check out one of my videos, my belt making video I've made in the past. It's that just 20 times. I do not have extra energy or mental capacity to commentate this whole thing. I'm gonna work it down from the largest men's belt to the smallest, then the largest women's belt to the smallest, and then the largest custom down to the smallest. But I'm gonna go put these off to the side and get to tapping. 20 belts tooled. Took, I don't know, man. I lost track. I had to do some other projects in the middle of doing all these. So it's been about 2 weeks, I think, since I actually started. But it was a nightmare. I only filmed, some of them. Obviously, I did a bunch off camera. There was one day I got 6 done, and there's another day I got 1 done. So it was just a juggling act between these and my regular orders. Now we gotta throw some paint on all of these, which these are pretty paint heavy. This is gonna be rough. This is gonna be probably another 10, 12 man hours to get this portion of it done. But luckily, my lady is going to be ever so kind as to help me not go literally insane. Time to paint them. Hello, viewers. It's been some time since we've spoken last. So, I really kind of hit a wall when I was tooling these things. I started getting really behind. It's one of those deals. I'm sure I've complained about it a lot, but to manage 20 belts all at once is really difficult to do in your mind, because there's been a couple factors that have made this job particularly, I don't want to call it troublesome, but the big challenges. So typically a belt like one of these would cost about $300, but because we're doing so many of them, and because we're kind of doing the same artwork on all of them, for the most part the artwork's pretty similar. I'll give you guys a look here. But because the artwork's super similar on all of them, so I don't have to necessarily do so much design time, accompanied by the fact that we had these custom stamps made of all these letters, these trailers, and then each belt has a $sign and a flamingo. So we have these tools now that should, in theory, speed the process up, which they have. But because she's ordering such a large quantity, I'm only charging her about 2/3 of what they would normally cost. So with that being said, you know, it's one of those deals where as much as I want to give people deals or discounts or be able to like hook people up when they order a lot of stuff, I really kind of can't, especially on a job this size. We're not talking about, you know, 2 belts and a 1 day, like, you know, if she ordered 2 belts, that would have been a 1 day project. You know, maybe I could chop $50 off or, you know, throw in free shipping or something like that. But with 20, we're talking about like 10 work days of stuff. Like the very first day, it took me to literally like cut and just size and like organize them all. And then I got like halfway through the stamping of just the letters. Like we didn't even get to any carving on the first day. And this job has just been really drawn out and drug out. Just for example, the painting alone took 2 days. And that was with my lady helping me. Like it was literally an entire day just painting borders. If you figure each border takes about, you know, let's call it anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour. Some of them are more tricky, like these ones with the black having to get in between and do all the letters. Those are a lot more time consuming than these ones these brown ones that don't necessarily go up in all the cracks of the letters and stuff. So if you figure they take, even for easy numbers, let's call it 30 minutes. You go 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours. You know, and some of these, like the black ones probably took more like, you know, 40 minutes instead of the 30 minutes on these other ones. So with that being said, trying to film in the middle of all of this is also adding a layer of difficulty. So we kind of jumped forward a little bit. So from here on out isn't necessarily the last inning of the game. I like to call like this part of the belt the 7th inning stretch, because we still have to oil all these. We still have to resist coat all these. We have to stain all these. Then we have to skive down these edges, glue everything to backings, sew everything, and then still do the edges. So there's still quite a bit of work. I'm guessing this is probably 2 more days, or at least 2.5 days. The hard part is this portion right here taking so much time to dry. So today in particular shouldn't necessarily be a ton of man hours on these, but in order to let the oil dry, then if we do the resist coat, that's another 2 to 3 hours. You know, maybe only 10 minutes, but it'll take 3 hours to dry. I shouldn't really be done with these for most likely 2 to 3 more days, just because today is so slow and I'm not gonna make a ton of quote unquote progress in terms of hours put into them. But for the rest of this project, you guys are here tagging along for the journey. So with that being said, I gotta stop wasting time talking about these, and I'm gonna slap a big old slather of oil on them. First order of business, gotta go full prostate examiner mode. Got my chunk of fleece, stroking off the extra, pulling off. Oh my, I can't say this without sounding super suspect. I am removing any extra pieces of fleece that might be kind of loose on here. Now we have this nice solid piece that isn't gonna shed on us. Take our gallon of neat's foot oil. I'm going to start way up at the top so I don't lean on anything, get my shirt oily. And there we go. See you guys in a little while. These things are looking super good. I mean, like, damn, girl. I'm trying to get, like, if you feel me, demonetized. Okay, so, all right, so what we got now is we are going to throw some resist coat on all these bad boys. My resist coat of choice is Resolene. So what we're gonna do with our resist coat is brush it on pretty generously. Kind of almost wanna let it puddle up a little bit. Okay, there we go. We gotta let these dry. I'm guessing at this temperature, probably 2 to 3 hours. And then tomorrow is when we are going to get to sewing everything together. Everything's looking good. I really like once we put the Resolene on, everything kind of darkens up and you can kind of see those little details start to pop. We start already building that contrast with the oil and the Resolene. Anyways, yeah, it's hot. I'm sweaty. See you guys when it's time to stain these. I'm gonna give you guys a first-person view of the stain process. Take my jug of stain in here. See if you can see it. It looks like the void. It really looks disgusting. I kind of grabbed too much, so I'm gonna have to kind of put those down here, and then just taking my brush, going in circles, trying to get down in all the cracks and the nooks and crannies of all this floral and stuff. Kind of awkward having you right where my arms need to be, keep punching the tripod. Okay, looks like good coverage. Really gross, gnarly, dark mess. But because we put that resist coat on, it doesn't really absorb into the surface of the leather all too quick. Might take a couple wipes. One thing we don't want to do is wipe too much of it off because we're going to remove some of this stain that's down in the cracks. We have our next step after this one to really tighten up this stain. It's still a little bit dark for my liking, but it is super hot and I want to be done for the day. So here is staining 19 more belts. There we go, starting to look like 20 belts now. Sheesh. What's up, you jabronis? Most chaotic transition ever. Super unnecessary, I'm sorry about that. I've been getting a lot of WWF memes. I grew up watching wrestling as a kid. Golden era, if I do say so myself. The Rock, John Cena, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar. It doesn't matter who I saw when I was a little kid watching wrestling. All right, so I am incredibly behind today, and I am panic goofy right now. I gotta get these fucking belts done, man. First order of business, I don't remember exactly what step I said was next, but I'm pretty sure I lied to you. This next step, we are going to take our stitch groover. Basically what we're gonna do is there's a little, you probably can't see it, but there's a tiny hole on the end of this tool, and this metal rod, or the shaft if you will sit on the side of the belt, and then with this tiny little eyelet hole, we're going to cut a stitch groove so that way our stitching lays flush with the surface. And it should look something like this. So you can see as I'm going, we're getting this cool little leather spaghetti going. More like leather angel hair pasta, if you will. And we are going to remove this material, and then we will use this groove here to use as our guideline to stitch. It'll sit nice and flush beneath the surface, and everyone will be very happy. All right, so this step we're taking our belts. And because this is gonna fold over, these belts are nice and stout. I always make my belts really nice and heavy. I know a lot of people will use like a thinner leather and then cork it. I think that's super stupid and super pointless. Why not just make the whole belt as thick as it needs to be? You know? So because it's gonna be a fold, this material in here is too thick. So what we're gonna do, the fold is obviously right here, right? So I have my 2 holes for my snaps here, and then my 2 holes for my snaps here. Basically, my logo is the portion where we get to the quote-unquote end of the belt. So we're gonna flip this over, take our skither, which there is a really gnarly razor blade. This is like a potato peeler on crack. This is a potato peeler that will peel dead cow skin with pretty good ease. We're gonna sink this in and pull it towards us, and then we're gonna get these little slivers of leather and material. I really hate when that happens, and of course it's gonna happen when you're watching me and I got the camera set up. Sometimes these things curl back on themselves and get stuck in the blade, and then it kind of stops skiving. Then you gotta pick it up and start over. This hide is really wanting to curl back on itself for some reason. But now we have this thinned down. Might want to kind of give it a little bit of love here, remove a tiny bit more material. You know, you don't want to go too thin, because the weakest point of any project will, you know, that's where all the energy and pressure goes. So if you make it too thin, you'll definitely, it's already technically going to be a weak spot, because this is the weakest point where we've removed material, but we don't want to make it any extra thin or any thinner than it needs to be. So I don't know how well it'll pick up on the camera, but you can see this is the weight of the belt, and then this is the weight here on this end. That is how we skive. So I'm gonna go do the rest of the belts, and then it's gonna be on to the next step. Okay, it is the next day. So my game plan, the way that I glued them might not be the easiest to see on camera, but I basically glued them in pairs. So there's like 2 next to each other, then a space, and then 2 next to each other, and then a space. So I'm gonna cut these out. So I'll have basically 2 belts connected to 1 back piece. It'll be a lot easier for me to run through the sewing machine, as well as save me some time so I don't have to individually cut out every single belt. And I have a huge fire under my ass, because basically if I don't get these done around halfway tomorrow, I'm kind of like losing money on the job. Not necessarily losing the money, but I'm not gonna be getting paid fully what my regular wages are. So I gotta get my ass on this. Okay, so I'm getting my bobbin set up to thread while I sew, because each belt is going to take literally over 5 feet of stitching each. I don't even know, I don't want to do the math, but I have to have this bobbin threading at all times if I want to keep up productivity. So kind of continuing with the theme, my goal is to basically work on the largest. We're gonna start with the men's belts, work on the largest down to the smallest, then we'll work to the women's belts, work largest to the smallest. So as I work and make progress, so when I hit that quote-unquote halfway point, I'll actually be past halfway. On a project like this with so many of the same kind of items, it's a lot easier to mentally frame them per item instead of per quantity of work, because ultimately, you know, I'm getting paid for 20 belts, not you know, X amount of work. So anything you can do to either trick yourself or keep the morale up, anything that will help you, little tricks you tell yourself, will help. So pretty straightforward process. Really just trying to stay in this stitch groove. It's really nice as I'm sewing this, I'm actually getting to really check out the quality of these belts. I'm also kind of keeping an eye out for any little imperfections or anything I might need to touch up here and there. As I'm stitching, I'm also running a scan on all that kind of stuff. This is a down and dirty You're not an artist, you are a factory type deal, just geared as an artist. So bang bang, beautiful, not one stitch out of place. Awesome, couldn't be more happy with that stitch job.
Yesterday I made a ton of progress, but the problem was that I was working in my garage and it was like the first triple digit day in Texas for the year, and this garage for some reason does not have proper insulation or whatever, and it was like 120 130 degrees. Basically I got my ass whipped, and I think I gave myself like heat poisoning or something, because I feel horrible. But today is the day that we get these things finished. I was hoping to get them done early, like cool, maybe by noon we can have them banged out, or like, you know, before 2 o'clock. But today it's gonna look like it's gonna be an all-day event, just because I'm moving in first gear. I've been up for like an hour and a half, and I have not been able to shake feeling like this. So what the next step of the process, since we talked last time, was we have to trim the backings, trim and burn the threads, and we have to sand and buff the edges, which I've done for pretty much all the belts. That's what took so much yesterday. I actually couldn't film because the GoPro would overheat after every like 5 minutes, just because it was so hot in here. So today I'm going to show you that step of the process, as well as wrapping these bad boys up. So we got 2 belts that are sewn together, right? So what we're gonna do now, take our razor blade, kind of get this started in here, and we are gonna run our razor blade parallel with the edge of this belt. Then we'll run in here with some scissors. I'm using the side of these scissors as a guide with the side of the belt. Come in with some scissors. Then we're gonna come in with a lighter and burn these threads. So huge shout outs to my fiance for coming in and helping out dye the edges. She's also a nurse, so she could see that I was definitely like got some kind of like heat poisoning or heat stroke or something. This day I felt terrible. Like I didn't feel like explaining the step of the process or whatever. You could see I sanded the edges. We stained them, we did the corners, we edge beveled those, and you could see here I'm doing the final stretch with all these snaps. We got 2-piece snaps, 4 2-piece snaps per deal, so there's like 8 pieces. It was just so much, even trying to describe it now, it's so much. But here's the final assembly. I had to make some keepers, I installed the buckles, and we got the job done, you guys. Ta-da! Here it is, 20 belts for Trailer Park Rich. I had a blast making these. I know I complained a lot because it was just so giant and cumbersome, and trying to juggle this in our schedule with all my other regular orders of people who ordered 1 belt, 2 belts, you know, bags, random stuff. But definitely enjoyed doing this. I love pushing myself, trying to take my abilities to the next level. You guys can do it too. It might be tough and you might hem and haw the whole way, but at the end of it, growth is growth, and it's something to be proud of. So thanks for watching.